let's cheers.
Cheers.
Customary cheers. Cheers.
Oh, that's a different taste.
Yeah,
That's good.
I know I didn't chill this one so much. I probably should have chilled it a bit more. But it's very floral.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's like kind of flowery, sweet, light.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, so when my students, by the way, thank you, Miho, thank you, Akiko.
Yeah, thank you very much.
They were telling me, they're like, これがオースティンが大好きな10枚大吟醸です。Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
It has the cool label, you're talking about.
So I tried to save most of the conversation for when we were recording, but when I saw this label, like I am a huge sucker for artistic labels, and I got to tell you, foxes are one of my favorite animals.
Really?
I get really excited when I see them. I just think they're cool.
Yeah.
They're just really cool. And so, like, when I saw this, it kind of reminded me. I mean, you probably don't know this game, but there's this indie game which is like
a video game.
Yeah, it's a video game. It's called Ori and the Dark Forest or something.
Ori and the Dark Forest. Okay,
something like that.
What's that game about?
I might be saying the name wrong, but I played it probably 6 years ago or something. And it's got this kind of art style where it's like kind of like a fantasy or like mystical art style. And so whenever I see this, like I just instantly get attached to it.
Can you transform into a wolf in that game? Is that how it works? Because I may have played that game years ago.
So it's you play as like a fairy fox or a fairy wolf.
And do you do like brushstrokes or something like that? Is there like a calligraphy aspect to
No.
Okay.
But it's like very like pastel kind of art style.
I may have played this like years and years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, this kind of art style.
Yeah. But anyways, so like when I saw that, it just reminded me of it, and I really like that kind of like fairy like fantasy kind of art style that this has. And then one of the other things is like the frayed label.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know. I don't even know if that's hard or easy. It's probably really easy just to make the frayed label.
Yeah.
But doesn't it just look cooler?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean so it's like the higher quality it is, in like a Western sense, the cheaper it looks.
Yeah.
Like the less refined it looks, whereas that's actually a symbol of more refinedness. I love that about Japanese artistic sense.
Yeah.
But I do want to tell people, so もし今ご覧の皆さん有料コメント残していただければ we can buy some sake that you recommend for us. We've done that in the past and we're doing that now.
Yep.
This is really good. 他にぜひオースティンとかアーサーに飲んでほしい日本酒があったらぜひ有料コメントで残してね。
Yeah. Especially if you think that like you're gonna blow our minds.
Oh yeah, a unique one, a special one.
I know Austin or I know Arthur really likes, this flavor.
Yeah.
But here's this really crazy sake that I just know they're gonna love.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So what are we talking about today? What's the first topic you want to talk about?
I'm drawing a blank. What did we decide on?
Come on, man.
We were gonna talk about.
One is the things we're worried about the future of Japan.
Yes.
You want to do that one first?
Let's dive into that one first.
So today's topic is the things that worry us about the future of Japan.
Yeah. I mean, both of us have lived in this country for a while at this point.
Yeah, and the thing is, we want to continue living here. I would like to live here for the rest of my life for the next like 40, 50 years, you know?
Sorry, I'm getting over a flu.
Yeah, Austin had the flu and he was like down for a week.
Yeah.
So
it was not fun.
Yeah. So he'll be coughing a little bit, but
I'm okay.
Everyone,
I'm not contagious anymore.
Please write comments being like, Austin, get better, please.
Please get better.
Please get better.
Thank you. Thank you for your concern. But the yen's not very strong right now.
The yen's not very strong, dude.
Oh my god, man! I'll tell you, there were 2 times that I recently noticed this.
Yeah.
First, when I was going back to the U.S.
Yeah.
And I was exchanging my money.
Yeah.
So from yen into dollars, and I pulled out 5万円.
5万円.
Right. So I thought like, oh, we're going on a trip and go Mayan. Yeah, that should cover things.
Yeah.
And then it just didn't dawn on me how little money that is in US dollars, because like it came out to like I think like $350.
Yeah, right.
And I was just looking at this like,
come on, it should be $450,
like, where'd my money go?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just, oh God, that hurt.
Yeah.
That hurt a lot.
Yeah,
and then I had the opposite feeling coming back because I found this cool machine in Yokohama.
What kind of machine?
Take, so it looks like a cash machine.
Mm-hmm.
But it will charge your Suica card using foreign currency.
Oh, wow.
So you can take currency from pretty much any country in the world and put it in, and it'll charge your Suica card. It'll transfer it into yen and charge your Suica card. So, I ended up pulling out more money for our trip to America, I think somewhere around like Jumayan.
Yeah.
And so I had extra money coming back, and I didn't want to bother going to like a currency exchange place because it's kind of like out of the way.
Yeah.
And so I found this, and then I was able to like put all my US dollars into my Suica card, and I had like $270.
Yeah, right.
Right. And so I charged my Suica card, and all of a sudden it's like over $400, and I'm just like,
yo, my yen, right?
Yeah. I'm just going,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah, dude.
Wow.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I get this because, for my business, I use a lot of like Japanese services to help run our business and stuff, but I also have some American services, like my email newsletter service costs me about $300 a month, which, I mean, it sounds like a lot, but for that, it's worth the investment because of things you can do. But, there was no change in the service quality, but my bill went up 50%.
Yeah.
Because of the change of the yen, right? And then another thing too is like I wanted to get another espresso machine that's made in the US, and it's really expensive, but it was like, okay, so it's going to be like 40 yen or something like that. So it's super expensive for my videos, and it's an investment. Now when I went to like go buy it, it went from like 40 yen, and now it's like 57 yen. Like it's, and I'm just like, no, there's no way I'm going to pay like the equivalent to me of like $5,700 for this thing.
Yeah.
And I've been waiting for it to go down.
Yeah.
And the yen just is not going down.
Yeah.
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 I was actually, the other day I was reading about why is the yen so weak and like what's changing. And, part of it is, the interest rate of the US versus like the interest rate in Japan too.
Yeah.
But another thing that they were talking about was like, how Japan is losing competitiveness in the international market.
Oh yeah, I mean, look at how Sony's doing compared to like Samsung.
Yeah, right.
Samsung's just smoking Sony.
Yeah,
in pretty much every market in the electronic business.
I mean, when we were still young, everything was still like Japanese. Like I remember Sony Walkman and everything.
Like, I was reminded of this the other day because we were watching some. I watch movies with my wife almost every night, and we were watching a movie from, I don't know, like the early 2000s. It was like before iPhones hit.
Yeah.
And I forgot that like Japan had like the cool phones.
Yeah.
Before iPhones. Like before iPhones, I remember coming here as a high school student and thinking like, God damn, look, my phone's a piece of crap. I had this like Motorola Razr.
Yeah.
And it was like garbage. You'd see these Japanese flip phones, and they were just like, they sent text messages. You could go on the internet with them.
Yeah.
They were all fancy. They had good cameras on them and everything. And it was like, wow, that's so cool, man. I want a Japanese phone. Like, why don't they sell that in the US? And then iPhones hit and just blew everything out of the water.
Yeah. Now in Japan, everyone has Android or iPhone,
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, like, people talk about how in the United States, how like the 50s, 60s, and maybe even 70s was like the golden ages of the American economy or something like that. But the reason why is because the rest of the world was destroyed, and we were exporting all of our stuff to help rebuild different countries,
Yeah.
And that's a good way to like keep a country strong is to have a very strong export side. If you're importing more than you're exporting, you're going to have a devalued currency, right? You're not going to do so well. And back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, Japan was super exporting a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
And now it's not doing that so much anymore,
I would say the only market that still like has strong Japanese brands is the auto industry.
Yeah.
Like,
Honda,
you still
Toyota.
have like Honda, Toyota. I don't know so much on the East Coast, but I know on the West Coast, Subaru.
Subaru, yeah,
is
yeah.
actually
We had a Subaru.
Like, if you go to Seattle, you will see more Subarus than probably any other Japanese. Well, I take that back. Toyota is also really popular, but Subaru is huge on the West Coast in the United States.
By the way, for those who don't understand his pronunciation, Subaru is Subaru.
Subaru. Yeah. But you don't say Subaru.
Yes, it's Subaru.
You say Subis.
You say Subies?
Yep, you call them Subis.
What trash is that?
Subies.
Subies.
Yeah.
That's got to be a West Coast thing.
It definitely is. But yeah, so I think Japan, the one market that like it's still going pretty strong is the cars.
Yeah, right.
Because like, Toyota and Honda and to a lesser extent like Mitsubishi and Subaru.
Yeah.
Those I know those aren't like the one of the bigger car companies, but like all of them are still pretty successful worldwide.
Yeah.
Like compared to like American auto industries, which are really struggling right now, like Ford and Chevrolet are not doing good.
So have you noticed this? So like the U.S. government is really putting out a push for EVs, for electric vehicles, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny. I actually started investing in Toyota the other day, like a couple months ago, because I thought their philosophy was really interesting. Because for Toyota, they were saying how like electric vehicles are still kind of an immature market and it's not good to rush it. So they're still focusing on hybrid, whereas everyone's trying to push for all EVs. But I feel like in the United States, all of the car brands that are really pushing their EVs now are American brands.
Yeah. I actually think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a personal opinion, and like I'm not, some market analyst that can project the future of economies and everything, but I think something that a big reason why you see America so dominant in pretty much every market you can conceive is because a lot of American companies don't try to copy their competitors.
Yeah.
Right? They don't look and go, okay, well, these guys are making a product that's pretty good, so let's try to be like that and maybe try to be a little bit better. Yeah. American companies will come in and say, okay, you know what? They made something good. We're not going to try to make that because we're just not going to be as good as that.
Yeah.
So we're just going to do our own thing, and we're going to think of like 10 years later. Yeah. Right? And I think you're really seeing that like with EVs right now, electronic vehicles. In the sense that, the vehicles are kind of right now. It takes a long time to charge your vehicle. Yeah. Like even like it used to be several hours to charge a car, and I think now it's gone down to like 20 minutes or something.
Okay.
But even still, 20 minutes is a long time. I don't want to sit around for 20 minutes. So like, we're still not there. But the thing is like once things finally click, U.S. companies are going to be so far ahead and ready to like just immediately adopt that change that I think it's going to end up with a lot of Japanese companies here trying to like catch up.
Oh, so you think it's a mistake that Toyota is not focusing on EV stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually, because I think they're, and like I said, this is just my opinion. Yeah. But I think a big problem with a lot of Japanese companies, and it's not just car companies, but electronic companies here too. They're focusing on like the popular things right now instead of trying to innovate and try to make the next big thing. You know what I mean? Like you just don't see any, like, especially electronics. Like what electronics have come out? Like the PlayStation. Yeah. The PlayStation's come out recently, and Sony's been like sold out everywhere. Yeah. Like worldwide. Like PlayStation's been massively popular. But here's the thing, like console gaming's it's a dying business.
Yeah, it is.
more and more people are starting to buy PCs because PCs are now kind of hitting that point where they're more affordable.
Yeah.
And PCs are becoming more of a common household item because, people need computers now for jobs and everything. So it's like before, it's like you would only buy a PC if you're like interested in really gaming, right? But it's like, okay, well, I need my computer because I'm doing, coding or I'm like typing up reports and stuff. It's like, okay, well, I already have a computer, so I might as well get a computer that can play video games too.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, I feel like, I think you mentioned this earlier, how things feel stagnant here.
Yeah.
Where there's just not a lot of innovation. And that's something that scares me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of interesting you say that, right? So, because I feel like the kind of, at least when you compare it to the United States, right? So I feel like the United States is really the country of firsts.
Yeah.
And you may not necessarily do things the best, but you do things first and you get like a head start. Like when you look at the American train system now, it's crap.
It's terrible.
Right? It's terrible. But we were like the first ones to really do trains,
Yeah.
Big time. And like all these technologies really started here, started in the United States first. Like even video games was started in the United States, with Atari and everything. But I feel like throughout the history of Japan, you see that it's not necessarily things are created here. They take good things and then they make them even better.
Yeah.
But the issue is, like a lot of people, they don't necessarily care about a better thing. They care about a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like going back to the United States, it's so funny. Like even just taking the elevators, I was surprised at how, so when I talk about elevators, I was taking the train station. The Boston has a pretty good train system compared to many cities in the States. And like taking the elevators, I felt like I was in jail going down to like my prison cell.
Dude, the
or
elevators
something.
suck.
They're so dark.
They're dark, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but I think there's a law that prohibits the close elevator button from working. I think that's intentionally disabled.
Okay.
I could be wrong about this, but every time I use the elevator in the US and you push the closed door button, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still have to wait a ton.
Yeah. And that is annoying.
Yeah.
It's super annoying. But at the same time, it's like, it's an elevator. I'm going to be in there for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's good enough. Let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And, you kind of have like in Japan, you had the Sakoku period of the closed period where like only Nagasaki was open, right? And then like Matthew Perry comes through, not the one from Friends, the other one.
Yeah.
And he's just like, hey, open up or we're going to destroy you guys.
Yeah.
And then they open up, and then like the thing that really led to the huge prosperity in Japan was focusing on what other people were doing, taking in new technologies and really trying to like make it their own. Whereas like now I feel like things are really insular. Like we look at what we've done, what's working, let's talk to like, it was really interesting, so I was reading this book about very influential basically business magnates in Japan. There are really no business magnates because none of them ever got super, super, super rich. Like in the States, you had John D. Rockefeller was huge.
Yeah.
But so the guy who invented Toyota, right?
Yeah.
No, sorry, not that guy. So the guy, I think it's Matsushita, the guy who made Panasonic. It used to be Matsushita Denki, I think it used to be. Still on the lamp in Kaminarimon, it has Matsushita Denki. I think it's Matsushita. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But he was talking about how, the goal of a business in Japan is not to try to be the number one in Japan. It's to be number one in the world. Because if you hit number one in the world, you are going to be number one in Japan.
Yeah.
But if you just focus on being number one in Japan, well, I mean, that's like being a big fish in a small pond. You're still going to get crushed by the bigger fish, know?
Yeah.
So that kind of mindset is gone, I feel.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I mean, I think a big problem, I mean, there's just a cascading amount of effects here. It's not really narrowed down to one problem, but I think one problem in particular, if you could try to find a source, has to do with the education system.
Okay. Oh yeah, well you can speak to that.
So, when you look at the education system and compare it to we've been talking about the U.S., so we can talk about the education system in the U.S. Japan's education system like blows the U.S. out of the water in terms of test scores.
Test scores and
like,
math skills.
Yeah, test scores and math skills, and like overall, I would say overall competency of students here is significantly higher. However, once you get into college, it flips.
Yeah.
You know, and American universities are known worldwide. Like, you know, especially the countries like China are sending their youth over to the US. And I don't teach at a university, but I've talked with a lot of people, particularly students of mine who've moved on to university. I've talked with teachers who teach there, and the general consensus that I've heard about Japanese universities is it's really hard to get in, and then after you get in, it's kind of a joke. Yeah, you know. Yeah. Where it's like, you know, we've talked about this on our channel before, like comparing universities here, where it's just like in American universities, it's sink or swim. Yeah. Like you cannot half-ass your way through an American university. They're ruthless from day one to like the day before graduation. It's a struggle. Yeah. The classes are really hard. They're extremely demanding. And I think what that ends up doing is it ends up breeding two things out of it in students. Like, first of all, a competitive mindset. Yeah. Right? And second of all, I think it creates this environment where people want to branch out and forge their own way. Yeah. Right? Whereas I think a big problem with universities here in Japan is they kind of like set somebody up just to join a company. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, whew, okay, I got my entrance exam done. All right, I'm just going to kind of float through school a little bit, maybe go on like go to visit another country for like a year or maybe 2 quarters. And then, you know, I'm going to go apply at this company to set me up with another like interviews at these companies. Yeah. And I'm just kind of glide my way into a profession. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And you know, it's as far as life comfort, it's probably less stressful than experiencing that same time of your life in the US, but I think that like it kind of breeds complacency. Yeah. Yeah, it does. And when you go into these companies, like there's this idea of it's very age segregated. Yeah, right. Right? They're not really looking at young people and going, okay, well, what ideas do you guys have?
What can you do?
It's like, no, you're the new guy. You don't get a say in everything. You're working here till 11 o'clock, and I'm going to go play golf. Yeah. Like, it's that mindset at a lot of companies here in Japan. Yeah. And, you know?
Yeah, you know, talking about the whole school thing, and I'm sure I talked about this when we were talking about universities, but it really hit me really hard when I was taking a nonverbal communication class at Aogaku, Higengo Communication, nonverbal communication. And it was the final exam. Okay. I was like, holy crap, there's a lot of stuff we covered. I need to focus on this. Like we learned about things like pupil dilation to show interest. We talked about the Duchenne smile, which is the difference between a fake and a real smile. And we even oh, sorry, man. I'm getting too excited. I'm choking on my own spit. Yeah. But we even had like
that pupil dilation.
The pupil dilation. I'm talking about Higengo communication. No, but we even had like a day or two where there was like a map of like the muscles in the face, and we had to like memorize muscles in the face, right? And so he's like, okay, final exam test. It's next week. I'm like, crap, okay, I have to learn all these things. So I was studying for it the way that I would study for a final exam in the United States. Because in the United States, you take what you've learned and you distill it to the basic principles, and then you apply those principles to a new situation. Yep. So I'm like, okay, so if someone is going to show interest in you, I need to think about pupil dilation, the Duchenne smile, and I was looking at all those things. Yeah. Half the exam was labels for the muscles on the face.
Yeah.
What name is this muscle? What name is this muscle? That was half the exam.
Yeah.
I didn't remember any of those.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's just, what's the purpose of that?
Yeah.
You know, it's just memorization based. And I think part of the reason why a lot of companies don't really respect their new employees is because they don't know anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Or they don't think for themselves.
Yeah.
Well, actually, maybe not that, but.
You know, it's just memorization based. Like they don't know how to apply that yet. Right?
Yeah.
And so it like I said, that's just one piece of the puzzle for why things are kind of stagnating and slowing down. I think another thing you can talk about is like the population itself just aging.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's 2023 right now. We have 7 more years until 2030.
Yeah.
And once we hit 2030, it's over 60% of the population will be over 60 years old.
Wow.
Like I still like, I think that's been on people's minds the past few years, but I don't think that's really the consequences of that has really clicked with society here yet.
Yeah.
Of how bad that is.
Yeah.
You know? But one thing I know this kind of goes against the topic, but one thing I do think that I am actually rather hopeful for is Japan has started getting significantly more lax in its requirements for bringing people in from other countries.
Yeah.
However, there's a whole nother can of worms that opens up, you know, when it comes to people immigrating here, because it's a much bigger deal than a country like the U.S.
Yeah, right.
Like the U.S. is built off of immigration.
Yeah.
Right. Since day one, people have been immigrating. There's Native Americans that exist, right?
Yeah.
The indigenous people in the U.S., but that's different than saying native United States Americans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That they don't exist.
Yeah.
Right? You go to England, like thousands of years ago, there were British people there.
Yeah.
You know, Japan, thousands of years ago, Japanese people were there. Well, you know, America's only been around for 250 years.
Yeah, right.
Right? So it's like the culture and acceptance of accepting immigrants is a lot more welcoming in a country like the US or like Canada versus here. It's like Japan's usually been an isolationist country in history. So all of a sudden introducing a ton of brand new cultures into the country is going to create a lot of friction. You know,
it's interesting that you say that though, because I used to think that America was really welcoming to foreigners and immigrants and stuff. But you know, I've been researching about like government policy towards immigration.
Yeah.
And what you can see in the United States is there was a huge welcoming of Northern Europeans, so Germanic or Scandinavian people, French people, Frank Germans, you know, like that's totally fine. But the Greek immigrants were called the undesirables.
I mean, you know? My family's Irish. So
yeah, that too, right?
There too.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's like they talk. You know, they talk. I think racial segregation, like. You know, African Americans have been, you know, pretty much the forefront, and you know, Chinese and Native Americans. But I think very little's talked about like the non-white people.
I mean, so like just for a case in point, right? So my great grandfather came to America in 1907, right? And there's been a total of about 2 million immigrants from Greece to the United States, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe not even that much. Maybe it's even just like 1 million. But like 3/4 of that was between 1900 and 1925. Because in 1925, it was illegal for Greeks to come to America.
Yeah.
And then in the 60s and the 70s, you had another boom of like another quarter coming in. Because that's when they relaxed the rules. But most of that was just the current Greek people bringing their families over.
Yeah.
You know? And it's just like... I had no idea. Like, I didn't know this, but so there's like the Hellenic Society, you know, for Hellenic American, the Greek American Society is based in Atlanta, Georgia, which is so weird because I didn't think there were many Greeks in Georgia. But it was set up to Americanize the Greek immigrants because they were becoming targets of the KKK.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So for like the safety of the immigrant population, let's become more American, you know?
Yeah. You actually see that surprisingly a lot in the US.
Yeah.
Like I just watched a documentary and for the life of me I can't remember the name of this town, but it's in Georgia also. And it's a 100% Muslim town.
Okay.
Like you go there and the structures are they have like mosques everywhere. They have like the kind of like dome structures you would typically see in an Islamic country.
Yeah.
Just like Canada has like English and French written. So like all the signs there would have like English and Arabic written on them. And
in Georgia?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was either in Georgia or in Tennessee.
Okay.
But it was like deep south.
Yeah, right.
And it's like my perception of the deep south is like racism. Yeah, we love it. Like and so like to hear about this, it was like, wow, that's really crazy. And that it's kind of like one of the things I want to point out. It's like, there's been all these policies and stuff, but at the end of the day, like they still accepted these people. And it's like, they weren't treated well for sure, but like they were still allowed to come in. And I think over time that like built up a little bit more of a welcoming opinion
over time.
But I think Japan's not there yet.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's also difficult because, in the United States, it was okay for my grandparents to become American, because they got American citizenship and they started speaking English just like a local person, whatever.
Yeah.
But here in Japan, to become Japanese, you need to enter the koseki system, you know? You need to be part of the original families here.
Yeah, it's Japan's not a country that's willing to allow other cultures to exist within its borders yet. As foreigners, I mean, you know this, it's like you come here and like you just mentioned, it's like you have to enter the system. Yeah. Right? If you don't like become Japanese here, life's going to be pretty hard for you. Yeah. Just your daily life. Like people are so much less tolerant. Yeah. And when I say people, I don't mean everyone, but like
there are some people.
Generally speaking,
like the people who say "kuni ni kaere" to you.
Yeah.
There are people who say that.
But generally speaking, you're gonna run into issues here that you wouldn't in a country that's more friendly towards immigrants. Right.
Yeah, and to be honest, right? So like I'm kind of torn on this issue personally. Because I know what it's like for my family to assimilate and become American, right? But that's because the idea of America is that you're taking on these values that are not tied with like a history or an identity, but these are just values. It's almost like you're accepting the terms of the contract, right? The Constitution. Yeah. Whereas like here, there's a huge depth of culture and history and identity, and it's something that like you and I can't just like enter into, because the feeling is so different. Yeah. And there's like a huge beauty in that. I think I really love how Japan is really confusing for foreigners because they're kind of like keeping their own style, but at the same time, it's a barrier for new people to come in. Yeah.
No, I definitely, I definitely agree with you there. But I think it's going to create more harm than good moving forward in the future because we're just running out of people here. Yeah. And something that I think Japanese society is going to have to face in the next 10 or 20 years is relieving a little bit of that cultural pride. Yeah. Maybe like something as easy as like, what is Japanese? What is it to be Japanese? Yeah. I think people are going to have to start changing their perception of what it is to be a Japanese person, because I'm not even talking about people immigrating here, but there's a lot of mixed kids now. Yeah. There's a lot of foreigners who've moved here over the past couple decades, and they've settled down and gotten married, and they've married a Japanese, like a a biologically Japanese person, and now you have half Japanese, half black, half white, or whatever, or even just other Asian
Mhm.
families. You know, you have like a lot of my school is like half Korean, half Chinese
Yeah.
kids, and I think there's going to have to be a little bit of a reckoning with
Mhm.
society here of
Yeah.
like going, okay, well, you know what? Maybe what we think of as Japanese is not what
Yeah.
should be that thought process going in the future,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. That's a huge can of worms right
Yeah,
there, man.
yeah. Because it's like there's this concept of like you can become American,
Yeah.
right?
For sure. 100%.
100%.
Even if you don't speak English like fluently, you can still become American.
Yeah, you can be somewhere in the middle of nowhere and the other side of the world and come to America, and as long as you're like, you know, as long as you're willing to accept like the culture there, you're American,
Yeah.
right? And you just can't hit that yet with Japanese,
Yeah.
right? You can, you know, get a PhD in Japanese. You can become fluent in Japanese, but guess what? You're white.
Yeah.
That means there's always gonna be a little bit of a barrier there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. I get it. I know a lot of people who are like mixed or they're foreign, but they were born and raised here, and they have to deal with that stuff every day.
Yeah, it's like even Japanese people who are just like born in the U.S. and like grew up in the U.S. and then returned to Japan, they're still separated.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like that's gonna have to change.
Yeah,
it's gonna have to change.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think a big solution would be just to, you know, have more kids. But and then how do you get people to have more kids, you know?
I'm trying.
I don't I mean, I'm trying to fix that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just kind of like, you know, you also have like these systemic pressures that make it not viable to have lots of kids. Like so many people are having no kids or having one kid.
Yeah. One thing that I will say that I really got to applaud the Japanese government for is they really go out of their way to try to support having families. There's so many there's so many government initiatives and programs set up right now that give money to new families or like give like support with like diapers and stuff like that. So it's like I don't know if this is the case in every prefecture, but I know in like the Kanto area, and I'm assuming like most areas in Japan have this set up. That is really awesome. But the problem is we still have a toxic work environment. Yeah, right. You know, most other modern like countries at this point have switched over to 4-hour work weeks. Yeah. 4-day work weeks. Or sorry. We were just talking about that book. 4-day work weeks. They've switched over to 4-day work weeks, and many of them on top of that have adopted work from home. Yeah. Right? And that's proven with a ton of examples and studies to be beneficial to mental health, to be extremely beneficial to people wanting to raise families because suddenly you have more time to you know do family stuff. But you know, Japan hasn't adopted that yet. Yeah, right. You know, in fact, we've kind of gone the opposite. Yeah, it's like the 6-day work week is the normal 6-day work week here. 6 days, 10 hours a day. That is like the normal like work week in Japan, which is really toxic. Yeah, and also like there's a lot of pressure for you to stay longer and to do all these things. Yeah, dude. Like to be honest, like I've told you this, but I don't know if I've said this on the channel before, but I love living here. Yeah. Because I work for myself. Yeah. If I had to work at a regular company here, too many hours, too low pay, I'd probably go back to the States. Yeah, it's pretty brutal. I think mentioning low pay is another thing, but it's like the economy's. Yeah, but the economy's stagnant. There's not many exports, so it's kind of like GDP. It's like there's just a compounding amount of problems. And the future, if I'm being completely honest, looks pretty bleak for Japan right now. But we wanted to get better because we want to live here. Yeah. I'm not trying to be negative because I'm not trying to say that I don't like Japan. I love this country. That's why I live here. Yeah. But it's looking a little concerning right now. I know. I feel like I'm like the last generation. But there is hope in the sense that things are kind of changing with these newer generations. There's support with families going on. You know, we are importing more immigrants. So, there's potential to reverse things, but it's not going to happen for a few decades.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I think this is a good place to stop. We still have about a little bit less than half of this left, but see you next time.